Morning, you're watching Morning News Today. I'm Yuveka Rangappa. Welcome. And our top story this hour. Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba steps into the National Assembly podium today to deliver his first medium-term budget policy statement. He faces some great challenges to appease investors, stimulate growth and keep the ratings agencies at bay. We're joined by Pieter Faber from the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants for some analysis of what to expect today. Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
And thanks for your time. I think just first off, for those who aren't too financially savvy like myself, what is the importance of this medium-term budget, especially for Malusi Gigaba this time around?
Well, I think the importance of this, usually the medium-term budget policy statement is just used to inform people and align certain things between large policies. This we got now obviously a new minister. It's the minister's first speech, and I think what people are trying to see is, are there going to be any changes that are going to be announced so that we expect something different? And I think that's businesses looking for an opportunity where the minister can use it to say, but if there are going to be big surprises in come February, are you going to allude to them so we can start preparing for them now? Or is it all just we're going on the same trend as we did back in February and it's the same plan still and we're just reporting back? So I think that's to a large extent. Are there going to be significant changes or at least an indication that there might be something big and what the big things are coming in February?
What specifically will ratings agencies and investors be looking for or listening out for today?
Well, to a large extent, it will be looking at our deficit and debt. So how much debt do we plan incurring further and whether we can stabilize our ever-growing debt burden. And obviously from an income side, is revenue stable? So are we actually generating the revenue we've estimated for? And how far are we, if we are going to be behind, like earlier reported, where we know the collections are behind, how far are we behind and are we able to essentially balance the books without leveraging further debt?
Now, we know that Malusi Gigaba had set out a 14-point plan to achieve much of this, but how much has he achieved? And also, how much has that maybe, has it been damaged, if at all, by the President's actions last week when we saw the latest cabinet reshuffle and what happened to the Rand at that point? Do you think it would have made a dent at all?
Well,
if there was any good work being done?
Well, I think it's been a bit short to make certain very large impacts. I think in our view, the primary function at the moment of focus should be on economic growth. And as we've already seen, growth estimates being halved already back down to 0.5%. And I think that's where we should be focusing is what do we get? A lot of the other levers that we can do, be it income or limiting expenditure, are short-term type of solutions. And influencing economic growth is not something we can measure the minister on in 6 months.
So a lot of, we've thrown this question out, Peter, to our viewers this morning, and a lot of them say they're expecting to hear something about the nuclear deal, the controversial nuclear deal. They want him to explain what his dealings have been with the Guptas. Are we likely to get any answers or any reference to these, or even to hear where the money for this nuclear deal is going to come from?
Look, I think the primary focus of today would be if there is an announcement regarding further investment into nuclear, that would be in the budget, or at least alluded to how we're going to finance this. And I think given the fact that we're probably staring down at least something like a 53 billion shortfall in our estimates, we're probably, if we are going to then have to take money, it's going to have to come from somewhere within the current budget. And I think that would be the challenge. It's not that we can finance it out of surpluses, etc. We're going to have to reprioritize that money.
In general, for the consumer, what are you expecting? Good news or bad news from the finance?
Well, I think the minister already alluded to that it's probably going to be bad news, namely that he's going to have to balance the books. And the only way he can do that is on both sides, namely on the expenditure, but also on the income side. I think everybody's questioning on the income side, but how? We've already pulled those levers, and we saw in the February budget speech that the then minister announced that even though we had tax increases last year, it still did not solve the deficit problem. So further tax increases is probably not going to solve the problem either, because the base is dwindling with low economic growth.
Okay, so we'll find out whether we should be buying big Christmas presents or small Christmas presents or no Christmas presents at all. All right, thanks very much for that. Pieter Faber from the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Well, this brings us to our viewer question this morning. That medium-term budget is what we're asking you about. We want to know from you what your expectations are of Minister Malusi Gigaba today when he delivers his first ever midterm budget policy statement. You can post your thoughts on our Facebook page. Tweet me at Yuveka or at eNCA, and we'll share them with you a little later on this morning. Well, in other news, students from the University of Cape Town and the Cape Peninsula University of Technology will march to Parliament today. They're demanding, among other things, the release of the Fees Commission report. It documents the feasibility of free higher education and was submitted to President Jacob Zuma in August. The students are vowing to shut down both universities today. They're also demanding all